it's an honor to have a friend of mine because we went through this together and got along very well for my entire period of time. So I knew him as a very young man. Now he's just a young man. And he's done a fantastic job.
And we actually turned the murder capital of the world, that was the journalists call it,
right,
murder capital of the world, into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And you know, sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, you know, like,
it's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
Yes. And in fact, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to liberate. Yeah. But to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. You know, that's the way it works, right? You cannot just, you know, free the criminals and think crime's going to go down magically. You have to imprison them so you can liberate 350 million Americans that are asking for the end of crime. Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
Okay. As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out, but the fake news, you know, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out, because I think they hate our country, actually. Jane, you're right. Isn't that a great question? Why doesn't the media, why don't they put out numbers?
Yeah, 99%. I mean, it's crazy, right?
That's the bare minimum. They should have done that already. They've had plenty of time between.
What I would say, President, if I could, 1 second, just make the point.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no games.
No. It's very good.
He knows. Yes.
Congratulations.
And you know, Stephen has done such a great job. We have. Do you have any questions, please? Go. Let's not start with CNN because they're just so raw. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN. Low-rated. Which one is that?
The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Well, let me ask Pam. Would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country, and in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job. Thank you, ma'am. Wait a minute. Could you just also respond to that question? Because, you know, it's asked by CNN and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanting because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also?
Yes, gladly. It's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. That issue was raised with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme
it
Court's
after
asking
getting that?
to,
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor?
in our favor, individual at El Salvador's sole discretion, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it per the court can only be directed to him.
I asked
¿Se lo liberaría, Presidente Bukele?
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I smuggle terrorists into the United States.
It's only
How can I
Steve.
how can I return him to the United States? Like, could I smuggle him into the United States, or whether it of course, I'm not gonna do it.
Well, they'd love to have the criminal, witness to do it.
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick, these are sick people.
The President, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And
How
they
long
said
do
that-
we have to answer this question from you? Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that?
Well, it's illegal.
Why do you go over and over, and that's why nobody watches you anymore? You have no credibility. Please, go ahead. I think everybody has to. The president said it better than anybody.
Do you have any updates on talks
But you know
with
what?
China?
What?
Do you have any updates with talks with China?
No, let me just tell you this. I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. They're meeting like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America? Your prison, how you have to behave.
But if we get rid of the rule of law and due process in the United States, it's a short road from there to tyranny.
She's been through hell, right? Your daughter's looking down proud of you, you know that. Just keep it going.
I know.
Keep it going.
Like you said,
Stay with that one.
it's like you said, we have a purpose.
It's a purpose. She's proud of you. Angel mom, Patty Morin, who's been through hell. Where's Patty? Patty, stand up, Patty. Please. Yes, her incredible daughter. And her daughter's looking down on Patty today. This was some day for you. We're all with you 100%. And you are indeed an angel mom.
So not only are Democrats rushing to defend an illegal criminal foreign terrorist gang member, but also an apparent woman beater. To set all of that aside,
When she went on that trail that day, she was not planning on dying. These are the kind of people that have no compulsion. Like, to them, this is nothing. There was no remorse on his face at all. These are the kind of criminals President Trump wants to remove from our country. What? I don't understand why there's even any kind of problem with this. And it's not that it's political, like the left or the right, although I understand different parties have used it in the past. Why are we not protecting the American citizens? It's just common sense. Why are we not protecting our children? Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren?
thank you. And I just want to say that, does anyone have any questions for Patty or for me? No? I have a question. No. We'll see you all later. The president will be at his dinner later.
Please tell the truth. This is about protecting our children. It's more than just politics or votes or just anything.
Trump administration is lying about Abrego Garcia. He was illegally abducted from the United States and charged with no crime.
Education department and various educational departments down to the state.
President Trump campaigned on the promise to secure our homeland and deport violent.
Showed us pictures of her body against the wall, outlined to see how far the injury is. And it went all the way down as far as.
Chris Van Hollen rushed to Dulles Airport this morning to fly to El Salvador, potentially using taxpayer dollars to demand the release of deported, illegal, alien MS-13 terrorist. So not only are Democrats rushing to defend an illegal criminal foreign terrorist gang member, but also an apparent woman beater. And if he ever ends up back in the United States, he would immediately be deported again. It's appalling and sad that Senator Van Hollen and the Democrats applauding his trip to El Salvador today are incapable of having any shred of common sense or empathy for their own constituents and our citizens. Nobody knows this more than the woman standing to my right, Patty Morin.
The Trump administration is clearly in violation of American court orders. That still leaves the question, why is the government of El Salvador continuing to imprison a man where they have no evidence he's committed any crime and they've not been provided any evidence from the United States? So they should just let him go. President Trump and our Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Vice President of the United States are lying when they say that Abrego Garcia has been charged with a crime or is part of MS-13. That is a lie. I asked the Vice President if Abrego Garcia has not committed a crime, and the U.S. courts have found that he was illegally taken from the United States, and the government of El Salvador has no evidence that he was part of MS-13. Why is El Salvador continuing to hold him in CICA? And his answer was that the Trump administration is paying El Salvador, the government of El Salvador, to keep him at CICA.
Beautiful.